Hey there, and welcome to Write for Joy, the podcast. I'm Renee Long, and I'm here to help aspiring creative writers like you create a consistent and procrastination-free writing habit. If you're ready to finally sit down, write, and joyfully finish the stories tugging at your heart, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Happy New Year and welcome to 2023. I cannot believe it. It's so strange to even say the year 2023. But overall, I am very excited for 2023. I've chosen a theme for the year. My theme is space. And that refers to creating space, taking up space, getting more spaciousness into my life. So I'm really excited about that. I also, earlier in 2022 or late 2022, around October, November, I worked through Danielle LaPorte's workbook and audiobook. I did the audiobook version of the Desire Map. And I came up with essentially what she leads you through is creating your core desired feelings for the year. And I ended up landing on these 5 words that exemplify my core desired feelings for 2023. And they are luminous, fortified, flourishing, unbound, infinitesimal. So I'm so excited for all of those words. They're very personal for me. I loved working through Danielle's prompts and her thoughts and really beautiful reflections around how to get to those words. So if that's something that's of interest to you, you can absolutely go check out her work. That's Danielle LaPorte, and the book is called The Desire Map. And I'm just really excited to use those words and the theme of space as kind of my guideposts for this year. And so all of my external goals, my writing goals and my goals for my writing practice and all the events and things I'll be doing will really circle around those words and that theme. But I also wanted to share some of my reflections from 2022. So I really loved 2022 and I cannot say the same for 2021 or 2020, as many of us cannot say the same especially for 2020, and for a lot of us 2021 was also a very challenging year as well. 2020 and 2021 were traumatic for the entire world. I would have to say globally we were all pretty traumatized. It was a collective global negative event that really hurt and traumatized a lot of us, if not, I would even venture to say all of us in some way or another. And for me, I remember in 2020, I was working part-time for a small virtual business, and I was also running my own virtual writing practice. And I remember, the pandemic hitting, and I just kind of did one of my kind of fight, flight, or freeze response is like to ostrich and to pretend that everything's fine. I definitely relate to that meme where I think it's like a dog. I think it's a dog, and he has like a little hat and he has a cup of coffee and he's sitting in a room and everything is on fire and he's like, this is fine, everything's fine. And slowly he starts to melt later on. I mean, the most popular meme is just him sitting there with the coffee and the fire and saying, everything's fine, everything's fine. But the actual whole cartoon is slowly he starts to melt and things just start to burn down. And that is totally my trauma response, my response to or my panic response really is initially I will just bury my head in the sand, be like, everything's fine, nothing to see here, everything's fine. And so that it was really my response to the pandemic in 2020. Obviously, I followed all the protocols. I quarantined and did all of the things that we all did during that time. But for the most part, I was like, this isn't affecting me. I have a virtual business. I have a virtual job. Everything's fine. Everything's great. I'm just going to bake all these cookies with my mom. It's going to be great because my mom and I live together. looking back on myself, I remind myself a lot of that character and they're just a transient character. They don't appear in any other episodes. They appear in one episode. And it's the episode early on in Grey's Anatomy where there's a big train accident in Seattle, and all of the accident victims are wheeled into the emergency room and they're overwhelmed. They have all these accident victims. And there's this one woman and she's on a stretcher. She's in the ER and they're working on her. And she has these really, really bad injuries. And she looks you can clearly tell she's in really bad shape. And then her friend next to her looks totally fine, has just a couple superficial scratches. And she's on her phone, the entire episode, she's on her phone, even though her friend is in the hospital bed with these terrible injuries. This woman is on her phone saying telling everybody about this wild train accident that she was just in. And she's like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. The guy, he drove in front of the train and the train derailed, and she's calling all of her friends, telling everybody about it. And meanwhile, it seems like nothing is wrong with her. And then at the very end of the episode, she ends up collapsing and dying actually from her internal injuries. Now, I'm not saying that I'm dying. That's where the metaphor breaks apart there, because I didn't die. But I very much relate to that woman's response of everything's fine. Oh my gosh, wouldn't you believe this crazy pandemic is happening? Oh my goodness. Yeah, we're totally fine. I'm totally fine. My girlfriend's in the hospital. We're good. And everything's going to be great. And then 2021 hit for me. And again, this is all metaphorically speaking. 2021 hit and it was it really started to come to a head. And I just kind of broke down, not completely, but I really had a tough time in 2021. A lot of my, my symptoms of depression and anxiety really flared up. And basically basically all of 2021, I was not myself. I was completely, almost nearly incapacitated. I was still working, still showing up in my writing coaching practice. And of course, if you were in my programs during that time, I was there, I was in it, I was present, but I was also having a really, really, really difficult time. A lot of that was just the residual trauma response from everything that had kind of gone down in 2020. And again, everybody responds to these types of things differently, has different responses. And that was just kind of how my, body and mind and soul reacted. And for most of 2021, it was very, very hard for me to do anything. And I was having a really, really very difficult time. So 2022 was really the year that I allowed myself to be supported and to get that support. So I started going to therapy consistently. I've been with my therapist almost a year now. It'll be I think a year in either February or March. And oh my gosh, my therapist is amazing. Love her so much. I really upped my just medical self-care, I would say. I found a great doctor that I really connect with and really love. I got a lot of sleep in 2022 in not a depression type sleep way, but in a very restorative, hibernating way that really helped repair a lot of the damage that was coming to light in 2021. I took a lot of time off of work. You'll notice that I did not email as much. I mean, I still emailed pretty regularly. I got really into my Sunday Something to Love series, which I absolutely loved. I'll say more about that in a second. But I took a lot of time off. I took breaks from my business. I took breaks from the other work I was doing, and really rested. But again, not in a I can't physically do anything right now, but in a way that was like intentionally resting and recovering and lots of good things there. And I explored a lot of new ways of being in the world that felt more natural and felt just more engaging in a way. Like I tried different things that I wouldn't have normally tried. And I deliberately tried to make things easier for myself. So for example, again, if you've been on my email list for a while, you will have noticed in 2022, most Sundays, I sent out an email letter that was all about, which was called Sunday Something to Love. And it was literally me just sharing what I was loving in life at that moment. So it could have been a book, a musical album, a musical artist. It could have been a Netflix series or a TV series, a movie that I had enjoyed. A lot of apps. I always like to share the cool apps that I'm finding, like whether it's a meditation app or there's a moon app that I shared. So I just basically was sharing resources in my Sunday Something to Love series, which was so easy for me because it comes very natural to me to share things and talk about the things in my life that I'm using. So that was really, really fun and felt really easy and still felt like I was showing up for the folks in my community, my folks like you. So it felt really, really good. And now you'll start to see I'm showing up a lot more actively because, well, I'll explain that in a minute. So that was kind of my that was more of a 1 year recap and more of a 3 year recap, but essentially 2021 hit. I was a total ostrich. I was totally like that character in Grey's Anatomy who was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally fine, but like you'd never believe this crazy story. And then 2021 was like, oh, she's succumbing to all those internal injuries. And then 2022 was the year that I allowed myself to be supported, allowed myself to get the help I needed, get the self-care that I needed, took really good care of myself and explored some different ways of engaging with the world, some different ways of engaging my mind. And it was a really wonderful year for me. I would have to say I'm really, really happy with how 2022 went. And if you follow my work, most likely you have some stories and creative writing projects that you'd like to start and possibly finish in 2023 because, again, I'm a creative writing coach and this is a creative writing podcast. So if you're following, most likely you have some stories on your mind or want to have a story on your mind that you'd like to start and possibly finish in 2023. So with that, what stories and creative writing projects would you like to complete in 2023? And I have some exciting news. For the month of January, I'm going to be talking all about goal setting for creative writers using my proprietary process, the Wheel of Joyful Writing Goals, aka ICPCS. So again, that's called the Wheel of Joyful Writing Goals and also called ICPCS, and you'll see why in a little bit. So this podcast series is going to take you through every step of this wheel so you know exactly what you need to do to start and finish creative writing projects with ease, consistency, and joy. Because one of the number one things that I hear creative writers tell me is that they really struggle to finish the stories that they start, or they even struggle to start to begin with because they're dealing with procrastination and all of these things that kind of get in our way as writers. So if you have ever struggled with consistency with your writing, where inconsistency shows up more than consistency, or maybe you struggle with procrastination, you feel burnt out. Again, maybe you're entering into a winter season, which is totally fine. Or you've struggled with perfectionism, or you struggle with a raging, rude, and maybe even outright nasty inner critic. You're gonna want to follow along in this series and dig deep with me into the Wheel of Joyful Writing Goals, which I'm so excited about. I cannot wait. So you see, there's a problem with most goal setting strategies out there, and I like to do goal setting a little bit differently. So the problem with most goal setting strategies is they focus heavily on outward actions and behaviors. They talk a lot about habits and using your calendar, setting phone reminders, using timers, waking up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. before everybody else is woken up. They talk about blocking social media, etc., etc. And truly, you may be like rolling your eyes at this point because these are actually really great things. Everything I just listed, I use myself. I promote and teach and use these tools all the time. I literally live by my timer. If you followed me for a while, you probably remember my strawberry timer, which unfortunately broke last year, RIP strawberry timer. But I love all of these tools. And in fact, there's an entire section of the Wheel of Joyful Writing Goals dedicated to these outward tools. But issues can arise when you focus only on the outward behaviors. Why? Because behavior change happens from the inside out, not the outside in. Going outside in can be really useful, but we really need to focus on both, starting from the inside out and then using those outward tools to support those things. So you have to address the internal before you can change external behaviors. I'll say that again. You have to address internal stuff before you can change external behaviors. And that's why I love this model that I've created so much. It starts with the internal stuff so you can slowly adjust your external behaviors, and so you can really determine what external behaviors work for you. For some people, timers are extremely stressful and they just don't like them. And if you don't like something, it's not going to work. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to feel joyful. And so it's not for you, right? But you need to work on the internal stuff first so you can slowly start to curate what external tools you want to integrate into your writing practice. And once you've done both the internal work and you've chosen your external tools, that is going to actually change your behavior. And behaviors are the actions you need to achieve your goals. Goals are only achieved when you take the required actions to achieve them. That's the only way to achieve goals. We cannot achieve goals in our mind, right? And in our case, finishing our beloved story projects on a consistent basis with joy is most likely on your goals list, right? So that's the external goal, and we need to take action in order to achieve that goal. And in order to take those actions, we got to start with the internal and use external tools to change our behavior. I know that was a lot of stuff to throw at you, but hopefully you're following me. I love it. All right, so now I want to give you a really quick breakdown of the Wheel of Joyful Writing Goals, aka ICPCS. So imagine a wheel in your mind. Just really quickly, if you want to even grab a piece of paper and draw this with me, you totally can. So imagine a wheel in your mind, and now split that wheel into 5 different sections. Go ahead and do that now if you're drawing. And in the middle of the wheel, you can write joyful writing goals. Make sure it's small enough so you can still write other stuff at the outside the wheel or in the wheel as it goes around. Okay, so you've split it into 5 sections. You've written joyful writing goals in the middle. Now, in the section on the very left, kind of that mid section, but to the left, I want you to write in that section identity. And now going upwards clockwise, we're going up and to the right or clockwise. I want you to write in that next section, clear vision. And then in the next section, I want you to write presence, as in PRESENCE, presence. In the next section after that, I want you to write compassion. And in the next section after that, I want you to write sustenance. So sustenance is spelled SUSTENANCE, sustenance. All right, so again, just to recap, we have identity, clear vision, presence, compassion, and sustenance. And in the middle is joyful writing goals. So hopefully you have that. Again, in the next episode, I'm going to share a workbook with you, which will actually have this as a diagram. So don't worry about getting it perfect, but just Imagine in your mind a wheel with 5 sections going round, starting with identity, clear vision, presence, compassion, sustenance, and joyful writing goals in the middle, because that is what this wheel creates, right? And that's why we also call it ICPCS, identity, clear vision, presence, compassion, and sustenance, right? So that is your wheel of joyful writing goals, which I'm so excited to dig into this month with you. It's going to be so fun. So for the next 4 weeks, we're going to go through each of the 5 steps of the wheel and talk about how you can integrate them into your writing practice so you can actually achieve your New Year's writing goals this year. Amazing. This is a tried and true process that I shared last year in January, and I've been refining it, perfecting it, sharing it with different clients over the year, and it's really, really been shown some beautiful results, and I use it myself personally. And so we know I'm sure it's not news to you that 80% of New Year's resolutions are abandoned by February. Like, that's literally 1 month out of 12 that we stick to our New Year's resolutions. Some people give it up by like January 3rd, right? I've definitely been in that boat before. So that's not what I want for your writing life in 2023. I do not want you to set a goal that you're going to start your book or complete the first draft of your novel in 2023 and then get to December 30th, 2023 and be so sad that you didn't even write a word of it, right? Or you wrote the first chapter and then it languished on the shelf for the entire year and made you feel like poop the entire year. I do not want that for you. What I want to see you write your book, publish those short stories, finish your memoir, and do all the things your creative heart is craving this year. Maybe not all of those things at once. Those are just like a platter of things that you can choose from to focus on this year. But if your goal is to write a book, publish a short story, finish a novel or a memoir, that is what I want for you this year, and we're going to make it happen. All right, so I am inviting you, and I am so excited for you to join me for the Joyful Writing Goals podcast series, which this is the first episode, and I will see you in the next episode all about identity. Remember, identity is the first step on the ICPCS wheel of joyful writing goals. So we're going to explore how adopting the self-image of a real creative writer can help you stop feeling like a fraud and show up to the blank page with confidence and consistency. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode on identity. I hope you tune in. I can't wait to see you there. All right, my friend, I hope this message was inspiring to you and you're ready to tap into flow and release the stories pressing on your heart. I encourage you to share this episode and this entire podcast series with a creative writer or a writerly friend or loved one who may need a boost of creative confidence. For more episodes and letters of encouragement like this one, please subscribe below or at writeforjoy.co/subscribe. Again, that's writeforjoy.co/subscribe. Thank you so much for listening and happy writing.